Not ever again. Chip, over here, boy, Sonia whistled. The golden retriever flashed through the woods like a happy light on the gray February day. The dog raced over to Sonia and gazed up at her with adoring eyes. She tousled his ears and looked back at him with just as much love. It's late, boy. Let's go home. We'll take the shortcut. Sonia struck off through the woods. The pathway cut through the trees, then circled a small lake. The instant Sonia saw the lake, she was sorry she had come this way. Last week, the lake had been completely frozen. Today, several mallards were swimming in a small open patch of water out near the middle. Sonia knew the only thing Chip liked better than swimming was swimming after mallards. Chip saw the ducks and he charged. Chip, come! Come back, boy! But there was no stopping him. Chip raced out onto the ice. At the very edge of the open water, he started barking furiously. Suddenly, the weak ice gave way and Chip fell in. Chip! Sonia screamed. Never go out on the ice. Never! The words had been drilled into her since she was old enough to roam the woods by herself. What was she going to do now? She was too far away from anyone to go for help. They'd never get back in time. Chip clawed frantically at the ice, but it kept breaking beneath his front paws. Every time the ice broke, the dog sank under the water, and every time he sank down, he took longer to fight his way back up. Panic overwhelmed him completely. He was drowning right in front of Sonia's eyes. Sonia looked at the lake closely. The ice seemed to be fairly solid everywhere except around the open spot. She grabbed a long, sturdy branch and stepped out gingerly. If Chip had been a person, Sonia could have held out the branch for him to grab. Chip couldn't do that with his paws, but the dog never missed a chance to play tug with sticks or anything else around the house. Maybe he'd bite on the branch long enough for Sonia to pull him out. Sonia walked carefully, testing every step. Then she lay flat on her stomach and inched her way closer, holding the branch out in front of her. Now she could see the terror in her dog's eyes. She could hear the strangled gasps as Chip gulped water. Stick, boy, she shouted. Grab the stick. But it was no use. Chip ignored the branch completely. He had only one thought in his mind, and that was to get out. Sonia inched closer. Chip was so near to her outstretched hand. If she could just grasp his collar. Without warning, the ice beneath her gave way. The shock of falling in was so great she didn't even register the near freezing coldness of it. Unthinkingly, she turned and tried to pull herself back up, but the ice gave way, exactly as it had for Chip. At that moment, Chip scrambled, both big paws onto Sonia's back. Before she knew what was happening, she was underwater with all Chip's weight on top of her. She pushed Chip off with one hand and fought for the surface with the other, kicking as hard as she could, but something was wrong. Something was weighing her down. Her boots. Waterlogged and heavy, they were like anchors dragging her toward the bottom of the lake. No question of kicking them off. They were too tightly laced. Finally, Sonia reached the surface and grabbed wildly for the ice again. Again, it broke. Now Sonia realized how heavy her parka was. She took one mitten in her mouth and took it off, then tried to find the zipper of her parka. She had to get rid of her coat, but her hand was already half frozen. She couldn't even feel the ends of the zipper, much less get it open. Chip swam around her, no longer panicking now that Sonia was in the water. The huge dog bumped into her constantly. The effort of fending the dog off was so great that Sonia kept going under. 3-4 times she went down. Each time she looked up at the clear green underside of the ice. It seemed so far away. She had to struggle so hard to reach it. She was so tired. It would be so easy not to try. I'm drowning. And with a shock, Sonia suddenly realized the truth. I'm really going to drown. Suddenly, inside of fear, she was filled with terrible anger, an anger such as she had never known before in her life. I can't drown. I can't drown. I'm too young. I've got too much to do. The thought of her parents flashed through her mind. How long would it take them to find her? How would they ever believe that she had actually gone out on the ice after all? Then, stupidly, I haven't even finished my science project. The anger was so overpowering that Sonia made another furious attempt to reach the surface. Her hand clasped the edge of the ice. She just held it lightly, letting it help her stay up. For a moment, she could almost rest. She looked around her at the empty lake, the darkening woods. There wasn't another person to be seen anywhere. Then, incredibly, she heard a noise and saw a light. 2 people in a snowmobile were taking the same shortcut home that she had. With her last remaining bit of strength, Sonia waved her free arm high in the air. "Help!" she screamed. "Help me!" The noise of the engine drowned out her voice. The snowmobile kept on going. "Out here!" she screamed again, waving frantically. "Look over here," she prayed. "Look this way." But with a sickening feeling in the pit of her stomach, she realized they didn't hear her. The snowmobile cut along the edge of the lake and then turned back towards the trees. Just as Sonia saw it disappearing into the woods, the noise cut off. It took Sonia a second to react to the sudden silence. She shouted again, and this time, one of the riders turned around. Within moments, the 2 rescuers flattened themselves onto the ice, one holding onto the ankles of the other. The closest one held out his hands. Fingers touched fingers. Then Sonia felt a firm grasp of her wrists. Slowly, painfully, her body was hauled up and over the edge. She broke into sobs as she felt solid ice underneath her. Another second and they pulled Chip out too. Sonia could barely stand, let alone walk. So one of the rescuers carried her over to the snowmobile. The cold hit her now, and she started to shake uncontrollably. "Sheer luck," one was saying to her. "Sheer luck, kid, that I stopped just then. We'd never have seen you otherwise. Sheer luck." Her life had hung by such a thin thread. She looked down at Chip, now frolicking beside her, now the worst of his dip in the icy water. She remembered the outrage, the anger she had felt within herself. She had almost thrown her whole life away. Her eyes followed Chip. She loved that dog so much. And undoubtedly she had saved Chip's life by going out onto the ice. But would she do it again? There was only one answer now. "No, Chip," she whispered under her breath. "Not again. Not ever again."